their toes. It's loading. Hi, friends. Welcome back to my channel. My name's Ashley Ariana, joined by the wonderful Steph Sanchez. Happy Monday, Steph. How you doing?
Hey, I am good. We're now in this slow period of the off season, so trying to figure out what we're gonna do during that time.
Even during the slow period, the 49ers always have to keep it interesting, right? So we have some reports coming out, which I like that the 49ers / NFL seems to try to keep it interesting even during the downtime. But really quickly, as a teaser, I saw on Twitter, and I was talking to you right before, that you're during the slow period gonna do some flavored water tasting competitions. My favorite, I don't know if it counts as flavored water though. It's like it's more of a soda. I like the ginger lime poppy or just the lime sparkling water from Trader Joe's.
Yeah, the poppies are pretty good. That I don't count as water. It is, it is, but like maybe I should do a separate one.
Yeah, I'm so mad because I love them, and then I guess they're getting sued because they tried to say that their drink is like a gut healthy drink and whatever.
Yeah,
I don't know. I never bought those claims. I just thought it was like a soda that had less sugar in it, which I feel like
it's good.
should take that. But really quickly to tease everyone, I said my favorite. I said the ginger lime poppy, which doesn't count. So my second runner up for the flavored waters would be Trader Joe's sparkling lime water. I'm not a huge, I haven't tried a bunch of the LaCroix flavors. I think there's like a grapefruit one. I don't know if that's like the actual name of it, but I like that one. What are your, like, if you had to give maybe just one, because you don't want to spoil it?
I don't want to spoil it, Ashley.
Oh, okay.
I gotta make sure people tune in.
There you go. Everyone, make sure to keep Steph on top of that. I know that Rob and Jason are going to keep you on top of your hair routine video that's coming out. So lots of exciting stuff. On the 49ers front, there was a report that came out a few days ago. Jeremy Fowler talked about it.
Fowler.
Am I saying that wrong? I said flower. It's Fowler. There we go. He's just a dainty little flower. Trent Williams might be interested in a new deal. Now, I might be interested in a new deal. Like, I feel like people are pretty much running with this. Like, it's crazy. There's no, like, Trent Williams is under contract. Correct me if I'm wrong, but for another 3 years. However, he doesn't have any more guaranteed money on his deal. We just saw Christian McCaffrey in a similar situation where he had 2 years left, but no more guaranteed money. For fans who don't really understand what that means, if one of these players were to get injured, the team could hypothetically just cut them for zero loss at that point. Now, Trent Williams is such a huge asset to the 49ers. I doubt that they would do that. And I do think if he was really aggressive in, threatening to hold out or wanting a new deal, that maybe they would succumb to that because he is so important. He does kind of have that built-in leverage, even though he's not close to being a free agent. However, I wanted to highlight before we break down, like, is he worth it? Should they do it? Just the report in general. It wasn't like he's demanding this. It was he would like a new deal. And I don't know, the way that it was phrased versus the way that it's being talked about, I feel like there's some dissonance going on there. I think it makes sense that, what he could be asking for is just that the money he's owed, he wants part of it to be guaranteed. It doesn't even necessarily mean that he wants money, added on. I do think that there was rumors that he'd like to play, and have a contract extension up until age 40. But that's going to be something for the 49ers. Now, offensive linemen they can play until they're a little bit older. But what was your immediate takeaway? And then also, and maybe this is a conversation to have after I'm asking you two questions, but do contracts mean anything anymore? It feels like the players and the team both can restructure, try to cut you, demand new contracts. Like, why are these players even signing things when every year it feels like they're subject to change? Like, Chris McCaffrey didn't need a brand new deal. Trent Williams doesn't need a brand new deal, but potentially they both might get one. Or Chris McCaffrey got one, and potentially, even if it's not this year, it sounds like maybe next year Trent Williams will be aiming to add some years onto his deal. And it does, from just a player, maybe like, what is it called? Like a player manager. I'm not saying that word right. You know what I'm talking about? If I was managing Trent Williams, I might want him
like his
to ask
agent?
for an agent. Yeah. I might want him to ask for a new deal, knowing that Brock Purdy is about to get paid. So some of this does make sense, just because there might be some players that are like, hey, there's about to be a lot of money allocated somewhere else. Now, of course, depending on how that's structured, it could open up a little bit of money, which is what we've seen with the majority of these extensions. So that doesn't, I feel like a lot of people are talking about Brock Purdy getting extended as the, deadline for them to pay any of these players. That's not true, or how salary caps work. They keep going up every year. But yeah, what was your takeaway with the report that Trent Williams could possibly want a new deal, which is the most not definitive statement we've ever heard, but very off-season contact.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, it definitely feels very like filling up some time. I mean, obviously, if you ask a lot of players, I'm sure they would want a new contract. Like for Trent, he does have 2 years left on his deal. So like, yeah, he signed until 2026. So including this one, two more years, right? Is that how that works, or 3? I mean, you might be right. So 24, 25, 26. That is 3.
I can do math.
Yeah, I'm just
Take that.
Good at math. I'm just thinking 24 to 26. That's 2, but it's 3 seasons. Yeah. Yeah. So I think the fact that he doesn't have any guarantees left on his deal, similar to McCaffrey, like you mentioned, could be the motivating factor here. I mean, obviously he's a player who has not hinted at retirement, but obviously, like, writing's on the wall. Trent Williams is 36 years old. He's going to be retiring soon, right? Or like, that's what we think. And so if he did get a new deal, like, I don't know if it would necessarily add additional years to his contract, because at the age he's at right now, 3 more seasons like he has right now through 2026, I think is plenty, right? Now, if he wanted to play beyond that, okay, sure. But I guess that's the thing we don't know. And so if you add guarantees to the contract, the 49ers, I'm sure, would want to be sure that he would actually play through those seasons, right? Unless, like,
because
he's
if
getting
they
the
guarantee the
guarantees
money
now.
and then he retires, you still have to pay him, right?
Right. So
yes, that's terrifying.
Yeah, it'll be an interesting one. It wouldn't surprise me if Trent wanted a new deal. He is still the best offensive tackle in the game. Penei Sewell, I think that's how you say his name, from the Lions, I think had the most recent big contract for tackles.
Million, right?
Yeah, and so now Trent Williams is like the 4th highest paid offensive lineman, I believe, and so maybe he wants to get back to the top, in addition to, having those guarantees, because again, thinking about the twilight years of his career, he wants to be set for life. I'm sure he already is, but like, as a player, you want to get everything you can while you can get it. And I think Trent being at the top of his game, this is while he can get it, right? And he, him, like Christian McCaffrey, probably seeing, hey, there's other guys getting paid, but I know I'm more valuable to you guys than maybe that guy is. So how about a new deal for me? I don't know. That could be how they're thinking about it.
I think that point that you ended on is really interesting, because when talking about, and you and I will get to it, Brandon Ayuk and obviously his offseason contract debates, maybe an argument not against paying Brandon Ayuk because I do hope he stays with the team. But something that I've thought that the team and fans should consider is kind of like in the pecking order, where does Brandon Ayuk lie? And I've often, if I'm having conversations with my dad or friends, I've said, if you go back and you listen to defensive coordinators talk about how they're planning on stopping the 49ers offense, a lot of times they would start with Christian McCaffrey. So when the 49ers kind of like, there was a second of discontentment going on with Christian McCaffrey and the 49ers jumped to solve it, I'm like, well, that makes sense. That's literally the number one guy that people talk about. And then take Christian McCaffrey away. Who else are defensive coordinators? Who's the second guy they mention? And it's still Deebo Samuel, even though maybe as fans who are up close and personal with the team, we saw that he was having a bit of a down year. And I think a lot of the fans, and whether or not this has to do with, I do think a lot of fans turned on Deebo due to the contract negotiation year that he had. But I think BA is, probably equally as dangerous. However, opposing defensive coordinators would then say, we have to stop Deebo. Once Deebo gets the ball in his hands, no one can stop him. This is, how you slow down the 49ers offense is halting Christian McCaffrey, stopping Deebo Samuel. That's our number, 1 and number 2 objectives. And so I was always like, at best, BA is third. And that's, arguing maybe him and Brock Purdy are tied at this point, because I would consider Brock Purdy obviously not weapon in the way that he's a skill position player, but I think he's not a guy who's just riding the coattails, but rather enhancing the offense. So when talking about BA, I've been like, oh, he's arguably third to fourth of like most importance to this offense. And this just shows like how maybe casual when you're talking, when not you, but when I or the general public is speaking about the offense, I'm obviously just talking about the players that we like focus on. But Trent Williams could be hearing that conversation and be like, no, I'm number 1. We don't run the ball without me. Christian McCaffrey doesn't get these yards without me. Brock Purdy doesn't get protection without me. The ball doesn't get to Ayuk. It doesn't get to Deebo Samuel without me. I'm number 1. You're extending all these guys. This guy's not showing up. This guy already has a brand new, a new deal that he's in shape for. You just extended this guy when he didn't need to. This is my turn. I want to stay here. I want to play. I put my body on the line. Trent Williams misses about 2 games a year the last couple of years, and he's fought through a lot of injury. And I think I'm sure he still considers himself probably the top offensive lineman in the NFL. That's just the way that these guys, you kind of have to see yourself as that to get as good as you are. So I'm sure he doesn't think that he's had major setbacks, and he's probably like, hey, all these guys are getting new deals or extended. Like, I want to be, represented in that too. Like I'm a part of this core that everyone is, celebrating and saying earned their new check. Me too. I don't want to be 4th highest paid NFL man. I'm the best. You can go quiz everyone and they will say that I'm the best. So I want that to be, solidified. And maybe, something he could do is kind of talk about retirement and like, hey, if I come back here, I do want to be compensated. And I want to know that you guys value me as much as I'm valuing you in order to put my body on the line to keep playing at this age, So it is a situation where, well, first of all, do you agree with that? Do you think Trent Williams is, top 1, 2? Do you think he's,
yeah, without question. And so that's where like the leverage comes from. Like,
yeah,
I don't think like Christian McCaffrey, like I don't think the 49ers could argue like, yeah, you deserve this money, right? Like there's no argument. I think that would be one example where the player maybe has more leverage, just because of how good they are and how valuable they are to the team.
Now, do you think that Trent Williams will, I mean, he was there for a minute. That's kind of the funny thing is it doesn't seem like maybe like that he's not doing a holdout. It's not like Christian McCaffrey where all of a sudden he didn't show up. Trent Williams was at mandatory minicamp. I know I saw on Twitter, like within the comments, some people were like, oh no, he missed some kind Kyle Shanahan talked about that. He had a graduation to go to day one, but he was there for day
he was
2.
excused even.
Yeah. And I think even when he is there, he's doing more like veteran things. Like they're not making him play. But I just mean like it's not like we're with Christian McCaffrey. There were some unknowns with like, is he missing this for his wedding or is it a contract thing? As far as like holding out, Trent Williams has showed up for the time that they expected him to be there for. So I really don't think this is going to come to a head this offseason. It just seems like maybe more conversation to be having and maybe something to keep our eye on for next offseason. Do you think that's me blowing it over too much? Do you think they will extend him this year? I could understand maybe just like from a team-wise wanting to guarantee just some of the money that they already have him under contract for. That could just be like nice of them, but I don't know if teams work off of like nice, I'm just going to be kind. I don't know if that's how teams work. Do you think that anything will happen with his deal? Or do you think this is more just fodder and conversation?
I don't know, right? Like that's the other ambiguous part of the report. It like Fowler said he might want a new deal eventually. So there's like a lot of like, first it's might, like it's not even like, what does that mean? And then eventually, like, okay, is that
might and eventually are keywords here.
Yeah.
Like what if that just means like when my deal is over, I might want to keep playing and to get a new contract.
But then why would we be talking about that now? Like, why would that even be a report? It's like, yeah, this is definitely interesting. I do think if I had a guess that maybe something would get done this year, if in fact that's something he is pursuing, which again, like that is a little unclear too. To your point, like he hasn't been as aggressive like Christian McCaffrey or Brandon Ayuk and like making that super clear. So maybe he's happy enough with his contract, but at the same time, he would want more. Which again, like that's every player ever, So kind of, it's hard to say.
The quote for people who maybe weren't on Twitter or didn't see some articles or the clip about it was ESPN's Jeremy Fowler. I almost said flower again. Fowler recently said, in quotes, there are whispers around some in the industry that he might want a new deal eventually. Cool. Great breaking news. It was a good title for my show though. Keep it up. Day 1 of 40 days off. We need this. But yeah, I mean, I will say like no guaranteed money left. I could see maybe there being some sort of pressure. It's maybe all he needs to do is have there be one rumor, and that's enough pressure for the 49ers. He makes their running game functional. He makes their offensive line functional, even with all the hoopla that everyone had about Chris Forcer coming out and saying that they can make do with later round picks. Even when in his quote saying that, he said, if you have a Trent Williams, like he said, you gotta have one guy. So if he wanted to, I think that he could make them, bend the knee and give him one. It says right now they're 3-6 in games he hasn't played in since he's joined the team. Right now he signed through 2026, which, like I said, 3 more seasons. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they do. Definitely something we have to keep a eye on really quickly, because everyone wants a new deal eventually. I like this from Ken. And then people are kind of talking about this being selfish, and I wanted to address this comment from CJ Montana. Do you girls think that the chances at the Super Bowl will decrease with all these people asking for more money? And then to maybe go along with this, Mr. Corey says they lost the Super Bowl and now people are like, I want my money. I'll let you answer first, and then I'll give my opinion because we might differ on these.
Yeah, I mean, that's I mean, this might have been happening even if they did win the Super Bowl. To be honest with you, I don't think that changes too much. But I think when you have these very long seasons and you put your body on the line, I think it's amplified the feeling of, man, I worked so hard this season. If we're gonna do this again, like I want to get paid for it, especially when we're talking about some of the best in the game, like Trent, like CMC. Those are guys who are a huge reason why the 49ers went where they did, why they were able to do what they did. We're talking about the value of those players. So, I mean, I don't like to consider players wanting the money to be selfish. I mean, think about your jobs, and when you work hard and you're the best at your position, you want to get paid like it. So I don't see it as selfish. Now, in the grand scheme of things, I know as fans, we do get concerned with, oh God, like, could the 49ers afford to pay all of these guys? I think it's been pretty clear that they can't. I mean, Eric Armstead was the latest example of that, right? So there are going to be
I'm sure
tough decisions to make.
I'm sure like veteran players. Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to say, like, that's where the value of the players really comes in. And I think that's where things are kind of hitting a tipping point with Brandon Ayuk, because I think they're maybe seeing like, hey, like, we know you're good, but in the grand scheme of this entire team, like, there are players we value more.
Yeah.
And we want to keep those guys more than we want to keep you, just simply because we value them more. We'll pay you at this, but if you're not willing to take that, then, I mean, tough luck.
Now, my response to this question, does it decrease the chances of them winning a Super Bowl? Logistically, no, they can afford it right now, and it won't change their team as of right now. The draft is already over. Free agency, for the most part, is over. Obviously, they can still be adding to the team, all the way into the season. But what I would say is it does feel like there is a little bit of maybe a mental shift from some of these core players. And I think bringing up Eric Armstead was a good maybe like example of this, where the 49ers just put out their state of the franchise earlier this morning on YouTube, and George Kittle kind of brought up Eric Armstead leaving the team, and having to balance valuing your core players and those core stars setting the standard and setting the example for new guys, and then also being, in the position. He's kind of saying this is new for us. Nick Bosa talks about now he's the longest veteran on the defensive side of the ball. And both of them kind of talked about the like facing the reality that this is a business. And so I do think potentially there could be, like I said, maybe it doesn't decrease their chances from a logistics standpoint, but just when I think about morale, I have been a little bit worried this offseason when I've heard some of these players that have been with the team for a while speak. It feels like there's been a bit of either hesitancy or sadness or some, like, not anger, but just like a shocking realization that maybe, the rumors are true. This really is a business. We're seeing our friends take pay cuts. We're seeing our friends be off the team. We haven't made our overall goal, and some of us are getting older. How can we do this again? And also it takes so much to get back there, not only from each of us individually and then as a team and pushing ourselves and our bodies, but also just luck, which is something Kyle Shanahan talked about in the state of the franchise. It's just the luck factor of how difficult it is to get back there and how you can set yourself up as best as possible, but specifically how injuries have really hurt not only the 49ers, but they hurt any team in the NFL. And that, injury luck is one of the strongest identifiers with if you're going to get all the way back to where you need to be. And obviously, as you're getting older, I think those things probably stand out even more to players. And they did talk a lot about their training staff and how they have new, they've adjusted their systems of how they prepare for the season. And each player has their own, obviously, systems and everything. But it is, at the very least, it's on their mind. And I think with Mr. Corey saying, they lost the Super Bowl, now I want my money, I could see some players, specifically, I've thought this about Kittle, players that maybe have sacrificed, thinking back on their career and being like, wow, I've trusted this system. I've trusted my teammates. I've trusted my coaches. And now I'm hitting this reality that when I was younger, this thing that, of course we're going to get back. And of course we're going to make it. And of course I'm going to win the Super Bowl. And the history books are going to reflect that. Maybe that's not what I'm going to get. And as I'm getting older and it's more likely that I'm going to be exiting the NFL, maybe my priorities need to shift a little bit now that I'm not really living in such a dream land, if that makes sense, which is honestly an understandable conclusion to eventually get to. I think that happens with all humans, not even in the football world, but if you're in college or in your career or whatever, I think, and that's a little bit depressing, but I do think that there's some optimism that you can have, and maybe throughout time you become a little bit more realistic. And so I could see that being scary. Now, I will say, going back to that state of the franchise, John Lynch talked about going into the halftime of the NFC Championship game and how from the booth, he was like, what is going on? Like, something about this team isn't, clicking together, all this. And he said, for the first time, he said, I'm an internal optimist. Everyone about me knows this. And for the first time, I was really worried. And I didn't have a reason to be there, but I went down to the locker room, and he said it was a breath of fresh air once he got there, because there was this belief in each other in that room still, even though they were down 17. Deebo Samuel was, I guess, growling at Kyle Shanahan, going up to John Lynch saying, make sure he gets me the ball. Kyle Shanahan said, John Lynch didn't have to tell me. I heard him literally muttering at me from the corner, which I love, because there's that viral clip from I think it's the Cowboys game, where Deebo says, hey, Kyle, give me the ball. Apparently he's still doing that, is, latest as their last game that they played in the Super Bowl and in the NFC Championship game, which I kind of love, because I feel like people, this is side noting, but I feel like people have really turned on Deebo and been like, oh, he doesn't have that same, drive that he used to now that he got paid. And it's like, well, I don't know. I just loved that insight that he's still if you just give me the chance, I'm going to bring us back. Whether or not he did or not, I like that he had that belief in himself. Christian McCaffrey, they talked about also having that belief. Chris Forrester said Christian McCaffrey can excel at every position on the offensive side, except for offensive linemen. Which I laughed about, because the Trent Williams thing had just popped up a couple days after he said that. But I don't know. I could see it affecting the 49ers' ability to win a championship, but not necessarily because there's not enough money to get players that they need, but just because I do think it is important for people to believe in their teammates and in their coaches. And if any of that is slacking, then maybe if they have a lull, like we've seen them have in previous either one game situations or multiple game lulls, they've been able to band together and get through that, which has propelled them to get far in the playoffs or into the Super Bowl. And if they don't have that, then that could eventually prevent them, from getting through that this year. Now, I'm not saying that they're at that point, but I could, if what some people are hypothesizing is true, and there is that kind of turning on each other, I could see that negatively affecting the locker room later on.
What it kind of reminds me of is when the Jim Harbaugh era was sort of starting to fall apart. And I'm not saying that this regime is falling apart. I really don't think it's gotten to that point. But just if you look at the toll of getting so close and losing, like that era, did as well with Harbaugh. We saw an off season of a lot of retirements, right? Like guys either leaving the team via free agency or like guys just retiring, like they're done. Like that was too much kind of thing, right? And so I think if we're feeling like players with this regime are feeling a similar way, that man, like that sucked the life out of me kind of thing.
Yeah.
At least they're still in it. Like we haven't
Yeah,
seen
yeah,
any
like,
of these
that means they have
players
emotions towards it.
like Trent very well could have decided like that was too much. I'm gonna retire now. Like,
Yeah.
And even Joe Staley like kind of got to that point. I know, like, he did it once he was with once Kyle Shanahan was the head coach, but I think the mental toll of it and how exhausting that is the same. And I think he as much of his body also like his mental, I think, was probably exhausted from all those years of trying and getting close and not getting it. So yeah, I mean, I think the difference is, okay, now we just have guys wanting to get paid more. Okay, that's fine. Guys aren't like retiring,
Also,
they're not jumping ship. I think that's different. Um and so that's the one silver lining that I'm seeing in all
yeah,
of this, that like guys do want to try again, but I hear you, Ashley. I do sense that they're, especially with Kittle, like I think Kittle has shown it the most, especially because we know Kittle to be this like very bubbly and like
jovial,
always happy dude joking around. Like there just seems to be a shift, and I don't know if for him it also has something to do with not just losing the Super
he's
Bowl, but
injured.
like right after that he had surgery, so he hasn't even gotten back on the field yet to play like football.
That's a good point.
So like he can't really like
Yeah.
brush it off of himself
And
quite
we
yet.
know that he especially takes that hard because he's needed surgery on his shoulder for quite some time, right? And he has refused to do that because I guess it's like not severe enough that he needed the soldier. It's more just something that will help him long term. And he's preferred to not do that so he can work on his training. And he's talked about his mental health. So I agree with where you're going. Maybe the injury is really impacting him because he did have to get that surgery. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I think that's a
Oh
good
no,
point
I
that
mean,
people might be not
yeah, and
considering.
I just feel like, again, as a whole, like um there definitely is a different mindset, I think, going into this season, but I don't think it's as dire as it was when the Harbaugh regime was like sort of ending and guys were retiring left and right, and it just you talk about bad morale, like that was I think that was some tough times, but at least the 49ers don't have that. I think they can start anew, especially if they get their money, they'll be a little bit happier.
I definitely agree. And I wanted to say I got distracted by one of our comments. But because my brain just blanked, I'm going to switch topics completely because I don't remember what my comment to you was going to be. But on the topic of contracts and 49er players and being unhappy or happy, there was another report made by Mike Silver, a guy that 49ers fans should know well, close ties with the 49ers for a long time. And he said that the 49ers offered Brandon Ayuk $26 million. Now, this was after a lot of rumors of, I think it was Brandon Ayuk's wide receiver coach went and talked about Brandon Ayuk being willing to accept a similar deal to St. Brown. And there was some back and forth on how far away they were and whatever. But I'm interested, if that $26 million rumor is true, do you think that one, that the 49ers would want that out there? Like, do you think that could be something that they want people to know they've offered? Do you think that that's lower than you anticipate and that they do need to come up, or do you think that that's a fair offer?
Okay, a lot of questions there. As far as the report, he said to quote him exactly, he said, "I'm hearing maybe their offers in the 26 million range," end quote. So again, there's a maybe in there, which I really hate in these types of reports. But do the 49ers want that out there? I mean, I don't think it's a bad thing if it's out there, because I think now the onus falls on the player to accept that, right? But at least the 49ers know that they've made an offer, and to them it's a good enough offer, and it's like we're just waiting on him. Like it's not on us. And the reporting around the Ayuk deal has shifted tremendously in like the last week and a half. Like it's been crazy actually. It started with like Mike Silver he put out a tweet, right, that kind of laid out the options for Brandon Ayuk. And then Matt Mayoka was kind of like starting to not change his tune, but like he was also really starting to lean into like the other options being a bigger possibility. Like I listened to the last 49ers talk, and he was like, yeah, now I think it's like 50-50 between him getting a deal before the season starts or him playing on his 5th-year option. 50-50. Like that's a huge
a huge jump from like the beginning when it was like 10%.
Exactly. And he admits that too, and he didn't really give reasoning for why it's changed. Like the only things he pointed out were things that haven't changed. Like it's literally things we've known for a while. Like the 49ers drafted a wide receiver. They have all these other guys that they want to pay. Like we knew that already. And yet like a few weeks ago, the tune was pretty positive, right? And now suddenly it's like it's shifted. So I don't know if that has to do with like the 49ers feeling like they've made their final offer and like they're not willing to move off of that, and like now it's up to Brandon Ayuk, but it doesn't feel like Brandon Ayuk is willing to take 26 million. I know another report that came out was from Brandon Ayuk's wide receiver coach, TJ Hushmanzada. And
he go on like 97 the game or something, right?
Yes, he was on 95.7 the game, and he pretty much said, hey, like if the 49ers offered Brandon Ayuk the Amon-Ra St. Brown deal, like he'd be there already. Like that's it. So like they're not that far apart. Like from 26 million, I guess, to the Amon-Ra deal, it's not that far of a gap, but it just doesn't feel like the 49ers are willing to offer him that, or 26 million is less than even what Waddle got, which, when you think of it that way,
he's like a clear number 2, right? And BA's
I mean, their numbers are very similar. So now the other question you asked me was, do I think that's fair? Looking at the market, I mean, I don't think it's fair compared to what the market has now gone to, right? Like we've seen a bunch of wide receivers get a deal this offseason, and I think the most comparable one statistically to Brandon Ayuk, like I said, is Jalen Waddle. And so I'm pointing out Jalen Waddle had 28.5 average per year. Now we're hearing Brandon Ayuk 26 million. Like that is, to me, that doesn't feel fair. I feel like at the very least, like Brandon Ayuk should get, upwards of 28.5, or at the very least 28.5, but yeah, it just doesn't seem like the 49ers feel like they can afford to go that much higher. Or going back to the value thing, like they don't feel like they value him that much to push it to 28.5 plus 30 million plus.
See, I was kind of surprised when I heard the $26 million report, because and maybe I'm just like influenced by, I know a lot of these numbers, what really matters is the guaranteed, right? But I do think that the market has kind of exploded for wide receivers. So I thought anything under like 28, the 49ers would probably be open to. And if they really are just like, nailing their sign in the sand, stick in the sand. Bad saying. I should not say things unless I know what they mean. But I really do think if they're quivering over $2 million, that $2 million is worth, like, they would pay that for a Super Bowl. And to me, having Ayuk excited and on the team is worth it. Now, Mitchell Ness says, I would pay BA like a true number one, give him 150 targets. Niners won't regret it. That's not the system that the 49ers run. Like, no guy is getting 150 targets, even Christian McCaffrey, right? Like, I feel like, is that correct? Maybe I just said that with a lot of confidence. I don't actually know the targets, but what I mean is, like, in this system, like, it's a bad system for like fantasy football, right? Because even during Debo's like true 2021 season, where he was obviously the number one player, he wasn't had never mind. So yeah, they definitely,
I see what he's saying.
I see what he's saying too. I definitely think that I understand maybe the idea of paying BA like a number one wide receiver and giving him targets that represent that. But I don't think that the 49ers system is set up like that. And that would take, see, someone said 49ers didn't sign Buckner over $2 million. I think they regret that decision. I think John Lynch has like came out and been like, that didn't work out well for us. Now, potentially if Kinlaw would have worked out, though, maybe they would have a different feeling on that. Like maybe it was more, and I'm not trying to down on Kinlaw, but maybe it was more the injury and the prospect that they ended up getting to replace Buckner versus the process where they did get to keep Jimmy Ward. They did get to keep Eric Armstead, and those players did make significant impacts for multiple years after they let Buckner go. And if whoever they would have had replace Buckner would have been serviceable, maybe we would see that trade in hindsight and look upon it more positively. Do you think that that's true?
Yeah, I mean, I still think that,
like Mr. Corey says, like if they would have drafted Tristan Morris instead of Kinlaw, and once again, I'm not trying down on Kinlaw. All I'm saying is I don't necessarily think that trade is the worst trade ever in the process of it. It's just more of the execution. It like didn't work out. And I'm not advocating to trade BA. I'm just saying the idea of paying him as a number one wide receiver when he's really only shown that he could be a number one wide receiver for 1 year. And at this point, they're not going to, or I hope that they don't trade him, because right now they're not going to get something that can benefit them this season. So it really should be a situation where he's either playing on that 5th year option or they're paying him. I'm advocating for paying him. And if the discrepancy really is between $26 and $28 million, I think that the 49ers should pay that. But that's just
I'm with you.
I understand wanting Kyle to adjust his system to like represent that payment. Like I think maybe people would be like, well, you can't pay him that much if his role is going to be 3 targets in the playoffs, which I agree, but that's more of a Kyle problem versus getting down on Brandon Ayuk for expecting to get paid to his potential. But I can really see it from both team ways, right? If I'm BA, I'm like, hey, if I'm on the Cowboys, I'm putting up CD numbers or better, because that's probably how he feels about himself. But if you're the 49ers, you've only produced that way for 1 year. You've actually never taken over a game the way that Deebo Samuel, the way that George Kittle, those guys have. You haven't shown that you can do that. And when you pay someone $30 million, they are a guaranteed number one wide receiver. Our system isn't set up that way. And even if it was, you wouldn't be that player. So I can see it from both sides. And I don't mean to get people debating in the comments, but I mean, going back to the NFC Championship game, the state of the franchise, they were just saying Deebo was demanding the ball more. Christian McCaffrey was taking over the game, trying to say that they were going to bring it back. Like, this is another representation of, I think Ayuk is an incredible wide receiver, potentially the best true quote unquote wide receiver on the team. But does he make a big enough impact to demand $30 million? I mean, I don't think so. maybe they could come to some sort of compromise and do 27 million. I don't know. We're not there yet, but that when I saw that, I was surprised that the Niners only offered that much, but I was also surprised. Like, I don't think necessarily that makes Ayuk look great, because I don't think that that's like a horrible offer. I think a lot of people are like, they lowball people so high. Like, you know what I mean? It wouldn't have surprised me if they were like, if Silver was like, they offered him 22 million, you know what I mean? Because they have the reputation of like really lowballing people. So when I heard 26, I'm like, well, that's not, a massacre. What isn't that what Kittle's agent called it?
That's probably just the latest offer. They always start, I think,
they probably worked up to there
lowest possible offer. Yeah, I'm sure they've worked up to that number.
Yes. Do you have any closing thoughts? Because I know that you have a show coming up, and I kind of had multiple closing thoughts about BA at the very end there. So I'll let this end and say, just like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'm going to be on tomorrow, or I'm going to be on not tomorrow, but Wednesday. I'm going to the doctor's tomorrow. Everyone wish me luck. I'm getting my blood done. I have tummy problems, and I've been taking all the medicine, and I've been drinking all the stuff they told me to drink, and super healthy. So I have that tomorrow, but I'm going to be back on Wednesday. And then Steph Sanchez is going live on her show literally right now. So any closing thoughts for you, and just telling people to make sure to like and subscribe. It's an interesting off season. I know you started this with like, it's a slow period, but we already have 2 stars, that are important.
There are some stories to track between now and the start of training camp. So hopefully one or both of those things gets resolved before then. That would be awesome, not just for content creation, but also as a fan, I want these players to be part of the 49ers. And so, yeah, I'm going to be talking about both of these things with Weston on my channel in, 5-10 minutes. So make sure you guys migrate over to Steph 49K on YouTube to check that out. And then, yeah, as I mentioned, Ashley going to be doing some filler content as well, getting ideas from people on Twitter. So, yeah, that should be fun.
Let us both know different fun things that you want to see. Make sure to like and subscribe to Steph's channel, to my channel, and then really quickly, you can even exit if you need to. This is going to take 4 seconds, but I'm going to run because this is so interesting. This is a probiotic. I mean, maybe I'm dumb, but I think they literally only sell it online. It's also really expensive. But look, this is great. I just felt like this is so exciting because, like, this is such a random thing, but I literally, this is that probiotic. Right there, I have it. I take it's
nice.
Actually
you have
right
it.
Now, which
You're
sucks.
Good.
But I've been taking this for like a year, and if you do have tummy problems, it's one of the only things that has helped a little bit. But it's not good enough to solve my problems, but it does help some things. But I just thought that was so funny because it's like not sold in a lot of stores, or at least around me, it's sold in no stores. So when I saw that, I was like, that's such a random thing for someone to know, and for it to be coincidental that I actually do have that literally in my fridge. But anyways, everyone, make sure to like and subscribe for us Capricorns. Think alike. Make sure to like and subscribe for all the fun off-season content, all the rumors, all the reports, and the water updates, and ranking systems, and for the long-awaited tummy update for me coming on Wednesday. Also, I went golfing. That was fun. Tell you guys about that on my next show. So make sure to like and subscribe. Thank you guys so much. Have a great day and stay hydrated because it's hot out. Bye.